a Queens by the Minute exclusive.
Jamal, and sign in, please. We have a busy schedule. We have a public hearing, a presentation, and a regularly scheduled board meeting. The public hearing is on the fiscal year capital expense budget. If you wish to speak on that fiscal year capital expense budget, you have to sign in before we start. It'll be 2 minutes a person after the presentation. Under the regular scheduled meeting, we will have our usual public forum where we listen to people speak. There's no back and forth, we just listen to you speak. You can sign in for the public forum before the meeting starts. 2 minutes again. Would you all please rise? The flag is in the back. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Come over here, sir. Come on. No, you're not. We have with us tonight the chairman of the board of Christ the King High School, Surfing Maltese. We have the principal, Peter Manarino, and our host, the president, and our host, Michael Michelle.
Hi, I'm Surf Maltese. Since we had a board meeting this evening, I didn't want the opportunity to go by that you were in the building. You don't have to worry, we're not raising the modest sum that we charge the community board for using Christ the King. I'm told by our attorneys that we're better off charging a modest amount than doing it for free, so otherwise we would be doing it for free. I do want to welcome all the community board. You have been in the papers quite a bit in the recent past. I just wanted to say hello and wish you the best and give my regards to Vinny Arcurian, Gary Giordano, and all the board members. Thank you for using Christ the King, and Christ the King will always be available as a community service to Community Board 5 and our organizations in the community. Take care. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So it's a little warm in the building because they recently had a fire and they recovered quickly because they knew we were coming tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. The presentation portion. And now we go to the public forum. And the public forum is where we listen to the, if we could listen to the people, we're going to try. All right? So, simple rules based on the number of people, 2 minutes, no personal attacks, no foul language. When you hear the bell ring, that your 2 minutes is up, please end. The first, and you're going to go to that microphone to my left back there, where Donald is. First speaker is Dawn Scala. Is Dawn here?
I'm here to speak about the homeless issue. If any of you were at the Maspeth public hearing for the homeless shelter being proposed there, you would have heard me tell the audience that from 2007 to 2015, homelessness overall was reduced in the United States by 13%, but for that same time period it has increased 41% in New York State. The New York State Constitution states the aid, care, and support of the needy are public concerns and shall be provided by the state. This has been interpreted and proliferated into unrestricted access to shelter and benefits regardless of where the person or family previously resided. Currently, approximately somewhere between 10 and 20% of people in the New York City shelter system are not from New York. Why do New Yorkers have to shoulder an ever-increasing burden of out-of-state homeless who come to New York? In 1784, New York State established a residency requirement of 1 year to receive assistance and shelter. This was changed in 1969. It's time to bring back a residency requirement. Why aren't our local politicians banding together to enact a change to the New York State Constitution? We cannot effectively provide for services for New Yorkers. Why do we continue to allow outsiders to further overburden the system? Enough is enough. If our elected representatives will not pursue this fight, we will find and elect ones that will. Thanks.
Sarah Feldman, please.
Can I start now? Okay, hi.
Ring the bell, quick, ring the bell.
Ring it. Hi, my name is Sarah Feldman. I'm on Community Board 5. I live in Queens and I love this neighborhood. In 2001, I was visiting New York City. I was a tourist from Houston, Texas. You know, those annoying people. And while we were in New York City, Houston, Texas went through a really bad flood. We came home to a destroyed house. We were basically homeless. But because of my privilege and my middle-class background, we were able to find places to stay. So what I'm saying is, millions of others in Houston at that time were not so lucky because they didn't have the privilege like I did. They didn't have the opportunities like I did as a 14-year-old kid. But the sad thing was, even if I had everything, my family fell apart. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on in Elizabeth, and I understand where you're coming from. And I'm for you guys, but I will say, give some dignity to those people who are homeless, to the kids, because they are going to have a hard time in their schools, their grades are going to falter, and their families might fall apart because they don't have a place to stay. I am for all of you in Elizabeth, but I just want to say, some people probably, when we were seeing these protests, were crying at home, and I sure was. Because after all that, my parents got divorced. I don't speak to my mother anymore, and she basically is very unwell now. It's like that flood basically tore our family apart, and all I'm saying is, just have some empathy for those people. You do not know them. It could happen to all of you. You could have a lot of money, you could have a nice home, but it could happen to you. And then those people who you thought would be there for you will not be there for you. Okay? I am for you guys, but all I'm saying is think about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me introduce Elizabeth first. Wherever you want to be.
Good evening. First, I want to thank Vincent Curie, our chairperson, for being kind enough to let me go ahead of his report. It's good to see everybody. I hope you had a nice, restful summer. Some of us may have, others may not have, certainly not people in Maspeth, and most of us here in Community Board 5. And so let me get right into what's going on with the Maspeth proposed shelter. Some of us were surprised when the mayor's office, also the Department of Homeless Services, whichever one you would like to say that they're not independent of one another, it's Mayor de Blasio's administration. He's already put 17 shelters in Queens since he's become the mayor. He hasn't been successful yet here in Community Board 5, but he would like to be. You know, months or years ago, there was talk of Glendale. That is still continuing. I know that community residents have a lawsuit and it's going through its motions, but Mayor de Blasio, for some reason, he has not discussed it with me or any of my colleagues in Queens in particular. He just feels that we don't have our fair share. And it was clear from the meetings that his office had with my office and also in the presence of the community board and other elected officials that he would like to do something here. But what is hypocritical of the mayor, and I've said this on a number of occasions and I have not changed my mind, and this is why, part of the reason that I filed a lawsuit against his administration is that he knows hotels are the wrong answer. He says that he's going to stop doing it, but he continues. back in the late winter, there was horrific murders of a whole family in Staten Island, where he went to press thereafter and said, that's it, we're not going to do this anymore. But since then, he's increased the number of families and people living in hotels as shelters by 50%. So he says one thing and he does another thing, and clearly this mayor and his administration cannot be trusted. We have a target on our back, but he's been successful in other areas. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my lawsuit, which is different than any other lawsuit that has been put forth in the city of New York against the siting of shelters at hotels. Different from previous lawsuits, and it's about something new and unique that's happening under the de Blasio administration. You've probably heard about these so-called cluster sites. And what they are, they're regular apartments. Some of them are in better shape than others, but they're certainly more stable than hotels. And the fact of the matter is, they're legal. But the mayor and his administration is letting these types of contracts expire. And the families are either going to go into hotels or onto the streets. It's rare that they're able to find an apartment or stay in these types of apartments because, unfortunately, they don't have good credit. Now, I don't want families on the street, and I could empathize and understand. Certainly, SARA Feldman, she was brave enough to get up here in front of the community board and talk about her own personal experience. These are people, I understand that. They need real shelter. What is not right is for our city to put them in substandard housing. And shelters that don't have kitchens is substandard and illegal, and that's part of the reason I'm suing the administration. So we have our first court appearance on September 27th. I will keep you posted every step of the way. And you've probably heard, since we had the Community Board 5 meeting back on August 31st, the owner of the Holiday Inn, Mr. Patel, one of the owners, is also of the same family, whether it's himself as main owner or part owner, involved with the Quality Inn on Queens Boulevard. It's not Community Board 5, it's not my district, but it is another example of the mayor putting a shelter in Queens. It has not, 100% of the units have not gone to housing homeless families, but a significant number of the units have. One of the letters that you might have seen a copy, and there's plenty of copies here tonight, is a letter that I wrote to Intercontinental Corporation, which owns the franchise Holiday Inn Express. In August, after this announcement was made that the mayor wanted to make a shelter at that location, I wrote to the president of that corporation, and I said, this is not good. You know, anybody who went away in this community in the month of August probably didn't stay at a Holiday Inn. And I said that this was hurting their brand, and it certainly was. And they wrote back to me, and a copy of that letter is circling about, right around the same time when the owner said, we're not gonna make a deal with the city. We're not gonna turn this hotel into a shelter. The Holiday Inn Corporation, Intercontinental Hotels, said that they would take away the naming right, Holiday Inn Express, that they're not allowed to take a Holiday Inn and turn it into a complete shelter. And according to the owner, he doesn't want to do that. Which brings me back to what I said initially. Mayor de Blasio wants to put a shelter in our district, and he has been unsuccessful, and we have to be mindful of his intentions. But understanding that there are these cluster sites in danger of closing is the way that I want to prevent the administration from putting families into hotels, because there's been about 250 of these cluster sites that have gone back into the free market. There's no guarantee previously homeless families have gotten these apartments, and there are over 3,000 of the same type of apartments that are going to expire. Does the administration want to take all the people, and 11,000 people live in these cluster apartments, do they want to put them in hotels? It's not right, it's not fair, it makes no sense. If you were to ask the administration, well, what is the reasoning behind you doing this? Then they would say, oh, it's too expensive. But if you look at the price, a family staying at Pan Am is nearly $4,000 a month. Or a similar type hotel in Astoria, run by Women in Need organization, is over $4,000 a month. These cluster sites, which are not isolated, which are apartments, are costing the city a lot less than $3,000 a month. Significantly less, and the reason they say they want to stop this practice is because they think that these business people who own apartments, if anybody in here is a landlord, the first thing you do when you have a tenant that wants to rent your apartment is that you do a background check and make sure that you're going to get your monthly rent. They have to have good credit. And unfortunately, a lot of homeless families they've certainly fallen on hard times if they're homeless, and their credit is not good. These apartments are not going to be rented to the families who currently live in these apartments. And that's the basis of the lawsuit. I will keep you posted on that. And that's all I'm going to say about the shelter, because that's all that is new. And you can reach out to my office. We can talk individually about this. If you have any questions in particular, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Person, Gary Giordano is our district manager. Kathy O'Leary and Laura Mulvihill are part of our staff at the office. And I'd like to introduce Kathy Moore from the Borough President's office. Kathy, you need a microphone over there, please? Or
Good evening. The Borough President has sent a letter to Mayor de Blasio against the proposed homeless shelter. I distributed a copy to all of the board members, and I have additional copies here with me if anyone would like to see me after the meeting.
thank you. Don Capaldi of Grace Manning's office.
I think most of us are aware that Congresswoman is following the homeless shelter situation and is supporting the local representatives regarding the opposition to the Holiday Inn conversion. So we're watching that very closely also. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dabo, you want to step up to the mic over here? Oh, wait, you're closer, we can feed you easier.
You're already looking this way, so I got to stay here. Good evening, everybody. Pleasure. So I do know that, again, many of my constituents are very concerned about this proposed homeless shelter as I am. I appreciate all the advocates that have been out there each and every day fighting against this ill-conceived plan. I am totally against it, of course, part of the lawsuit. Tomorrow I have a call with the Commissioner's office, and once again we'll impress upon them why they should not only go forward with warehousing 200 people without transportation or a kitchen space, but just that the city really should think twice about dealing with a hotel owner who has had a checkered past. If I'm the mayor of New York City, I don't want investigation on me, on my dealings with somebody who has a questionable past. If I'm the mayor of New York City and I want to make sure government is transparent and doing the right thing by the people, I'm going to watch who I deal with. I'm going to make sure that the people I deal with for the sake of our people in the city are credible people, not people who have admitted to bribing other elected officials, like the owner of the Holiday Inn. I think that is a major issue, and for this mayor, that has to answer why they're dealing, whether directly or indirectly, why they're dealing with Mr. Patel who owns the Holiday Inn. So we're going to still continue to jump on that point, because I think that is a credible point. And then just, again, to warehouse 200 people is not the way to treat homeless individuals. And certainly I am not for warehousing 200 people at the Holiday Inn.
Thank you.
That being said.
Not now.
Not now, sorry. But again, I'll get to any questions later. I'll hang around for a while. But Mr. Chair, thank you very much. Have a great night.
We have Diana Santana representing Assembly Member Miller.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me speak. As Senator Dabo mentioned, yes, we'll be doing the recycling fair event again. Assemblyman Miller also wanted me to mention that he is as well in opposition of the homeless transitional shelters as they are in their current existence. And we will be also having an event this Saturday, a safety event at our district office, 8391 Woodhaven Boulevard, from 11 to 2. While resources last, we will have smoke detectors courtesy of the FDNY and BIM etching. And Tuesday, September 27th, Assemblyman Miller is co-sponsoring a paint night at Emmanuel Church of Christ. It's from 6 to 9, it's $30, which includes all materials, and it is a fundraiser for the church. And thank you again, and I actually I just gave notice, and so this will be my last community board, 5. So thank you.
Oh, well. Okay. So, other business, since I'm up here and chairman, and the executive committee met to review the public comments and everything we know to date in regard to the proposed homeless shelter at 594055 Road in Maspeth. And we only know a few things because there was a public meeting, we conducted a public hearing, we received a description of what might go there, and we received a letter from a proposed operator saying they'd like to speak with us. We've received nothing formal. But at that, the executive committee met, and I'd asked Mr. Giordano to read the proposed, the resolution on recommendation of the executive committee in that regard. Mr. Giordano, please.
So you all received a copy of this. And this is a legal issue to a large extent, so it's written in a legal resolution format, okay? So I'll try to be quick, but you want the whole thing read, right then? So each of you received a copy. So this is a proposed resolution and recommendations regarding the New York City Department of Social Services and/or the Human Resources Administration and the Department of Homeless Services plan to house as many as 110 adult families seeking shelter provided by the City of New York in the Holiday Inn Express Hotel located at 5940 55th Road in Maspeth, Queens. Whereas one of the goals of a just society should be that all people have a home where they are safe, where they are in a clean environment, and where they have adequate space for themselves and their family. And whereas in New York City there are currently almost 60,000 people living in the city shelter system locations, and the number of people in the city homeless system is at an all-time high. The number of people struggling to that extent is more than 20 times greater than when in the early 1980s the Koch administration signed a consent agreement stating that the city be mandated to house homeless individuals seeking shelter. And whereas the trend is that the number of families and individuals seeking shelter through the city system is growing quickly. Whereas some homeless people are employed but don't earn enough to pay the often very high price of rent for an apartment in one of the 5 boroughs of New York City. Many others that are in the New York City homeless shelter system have mental health problems and/or substance abuse issues to overcome. And whereas the cost of housing homeless individuals and families when they do not have a subsidized apartment can be more than $4,000 per month in the New York City shelter system. And whereas for more than a decade, the number of people moving to our safer city from other parts of the USA and from other countries caused rents, the price of houses, and land to become beyond the reach of many working class people. These housing and land costs have caused tens of thousands of people to have to move out of our city to where the cost of living indoors can be much less than half of what a home costs to rent or to buy in New York City. And the fact that more and more people from other states and localities have been coming to New York City and quickly applying for shelter has increased the pressure on responsible city agencies to provide shelter. Estimates for city fiscal years 2015 and 2016 clearly indicate that almost 20% of adult homeless families registering for shelter in New York City have their most recent addresses at a location outside of the city of New York. This compares to 3% of homeless families previous to 2015 being out-of-state residents. Whereas the plan in question to house at least 220 people in 110 rooms at a 5-story tall hotel that lacks kitchens in the rooms is severely out of character with the surrounding community of 1- and 2-family homes. And the site in question at 5940 55th Road in Maspeth is located in an M1-1 zoning district and is a designated industrial business zone, or in a designated industrial business zone. Although a transient hotel may be permitted in this type of the zone, the proposed use is not for a transient hotel, but rather for a residential use. And the hotel site in question is not well served by public transportation, as the site is not in reasonable walking distance to a train station and is not well served by public bus lines. And it is important to state that while we may not have any homeless shelters directly in District 5 Queens boundaries, the Pan Am Motor Inn hotel site, where 200 families are sheltered, is only a few blocks from the northern boundary of District 5 Queens. The same is true for the former Met's Motel site on Queens Boulevard, where 76 families are sheltered. In addition, the Red Carpet Inn at 980 Wyckoff Avenue, which shelters up to 35 families, and the Flushing family residence at 1226 Flushing Avenue, which is at the corner of Wyckoff Avenue, are at our border with Community District, it should read 4 in Brooklyn. Okay. The current city administration and city agencies responsible for providing some form of shelter to those registering at the Bronx Intake Center because they are homeless indicates that the demand for shelter is so great that they are forced to virtually seize the Holiday Inn Express and other hotels to house those in need of a home. There is a growing trend, especially in Queens, to pack homeless families, including families with children, into hotel rooms. An environment where people have so little space and where they live overwhelmingly with people having serious needs is far from a healthy environment. This cramming of people should cease. Therefore, be it resolved that Community Board 5 Queens is opposed to the plan of trying to cram 110 homeless adult families into the proposed shelter at the Holiday Inn Express located at 5940 55th Road in Maspeth, Queens. Instead, the mayor of the city of New York and responsible city agencies should make every effort to find reasonably sized apartments for homeless families and individuals, subsidizing rent for a reasonable time period, instead of paying so much more to house people in shelters and hotels. Housing 220 or more people in 110 living spaces at the Holiday Inn Express Hotel at 5940 55th Road in Maspeth, as proposed, is significantly out of character with respect to the surrounding community of 1- and 2-family homes. They should see to the prompt renovation of apartments under the jurisdiction of the New York City Housing Authority, which are vacant because renovations are needed to make the apartments livable. The Housing Authority reportedly has more than 2,000 vacant apartments requiring repairs, according to an audit performed by the Office of the New York City Comptroller. 2,000 vacant apartments. The city should acquire and see to the prompt renovation of abandoned and vacant residential buildings so that at least some apartments in these renovated buildings can be allocated to those who have registered with city agencies as needing a place to live. And finally, the city should prioritize the quality mental health services, substance abuse prevention and intervention services, education and employment training, and life skills development that are vital to so many who are homeless, or would be if they were not crammed into New York City shelter situations.
So that's the committee's report. Shall we proceed? We'll take a vote. Mr. Jordan?
Any questions?
There's no questions?
Welcome.
I can't see you back there, that's why.
You throw out numbers about that 20% of adult homeless families registered in the shelter system have their most recent address and location outside the city of New York, compared to 3% for the year 2015. Should cite where you got those numbers. Where did you get those numbers?
Well, prior to 2015, we got verbally from the Department of Homeless Services. And I have notes with regard to a meeting that we had with them at a budget
consultations.
then I think you should say that, because throw numbers, you know, when we throw them in there.
So according to the
I think
agency.
you should, yeah, I think you should say according to the agency. The second is, instead of saying the former Mets Motel, I believe we should be pretty positive, and it's called the Metro Motel, 73-00 Queens Boulevard, Woodside.
Very good. Okay, we'll make those two corrections. Anything else? If not, we'll call the roll. Mr. Giordano?
Okay. Mr. Arcuri?
Aye.
Toby Block?
No.
Bob Shimelli? Walter Clayton? Peter Comber?
4.
Thank you, Peter. Henry Cross?
4.
Pat Crowley? Brian Dooley?
4.
Jerry Drake?
4.
Dmitro Fikowski?
4.
Sarah Feldman? Against, right? Stephen Fiedler? Angela Giovanello? Pat Grayson?
4.
Fred Haller?
4.
Fred Hofferly? Paul Kersner?
4.
John Kilcommons?
4.
Kathleen Knight? Mike Locascio?
4.
John Meyer?
4.
Lydia Martinez? Kathy Massey?
4.
Alex Moreau?
4.
Eileen Maloney? Peggy O'Kane?
4.
Michael O'Kane?
4.
Don Passantino?
4.
Mike Porcelli?
4.
Ted Renz?
4.
Kelvin Rodriguez?
4.
Luis Rodriguez?
4.
Lee Rottenberg?
4.
Walter Sanchez?
4.
David Sands?
4.
Carmen Santana?
Against.
Connie Santos?
4.
Lorraine Shuley?
4.
Kathy Sumsky?
4.
Jean Tandler?
4.
Barbara Toscano? Mariana Zero?
4.
I get everybody? Bob Holden?
4.
Anyone else? Thank you.